Hey, good morning. My name is Chris Burkhart. I'm the Executive Director of the Board for Licensing Contractors. And with me today, I have two of my colleagues. I've got Janine Miller, who's the Administrative Manager, and I've got Kathy Holloman as well. She is the subject matter expert on everything. So she is monitoring the chat. So feel free to post your questions there, and we'll do our best to answer them. And at certain points during the presentation, we'll ask for if there are any questions as well. You can come off mute at that time. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get rolling again. Just real quickly here, we are within the Department of Commerce Insurance, and within the Department of Commerce Insurance, we are regulatory boards, which is a series of boards, different boards. As you can see here on the screen, there's a bunch of different professions and industries that are regulated with the state. That means you must be licensed to conduct business in the state. And contractors, home improvement contractors, LLEs and LLPs are just among those. And so continue there. The board has been around since 1931, so we're 95 years. So we've been around for quite a while, and we're going on around over 30,000 different active licenses within the state. I think it's more close to the 35,000 licenses now. So we regulate the contractor's license, home improvement licenses, the LLEs and the LLPs across the state. This industry is regulated for both for you as a contractor and for the public to maintain standards, safety, and things like that. So we are, like I said, we've been around for quite a while, and we still have license number 2 that's active in the state. So they're coming up here on almost 100 years as well. So when I mean contractors, generally I mean any general contractor that does any business has their cost of the project is $25,000 or more. But we will also talk about the under $25,000 licenses later on as well. Those are the home improvement licenses, the LLPs and the LLEs. A little bit more about our board. We have 9 board members from across the state. They are licensed contractors and 1 public member as well. They come from 3 from the eastern part of the state, 3 from the middle part of the state, and 3 from the western part of the state. So we have a representation across the board, as well as different disciplines, all the way from electrical, mechanical, plumbing, commercial, residential, highway, every section. So we have a good cross section of all the industry as well. That makes up our 9 board members. We have with us here, we have 11 staff members that work day-to-day processing applications. That includes myself, Janine, and Kathy here that's with you today. Us and then 8 others. That's our day-to-day job, is to process applications and answer questions and to ensure that we have a smooth process of licensing for all our applicants and licensees. We also have a legal office that supports us. We also have a complaints office. So if a consumer files a complaint, it gets filed and it gets investigated by the complaints office, and then from our investigations team as well. They go out. And then we also have a consolidated call center as well that helps not only with our board, but all the other boards that we saw on the couple slides ago as well. If they can't answer the question, then they pass it to us to answer the questions that you may have. Again, these are the 4 categories of licenses that we regulate. We have contractors, general contractors, that's anything that's $25,000 and up. We have home improvement contractors, that is any residential project that is from $3,000 to just below $25,000, and those are only applicable in 9 counties in Tennessee, and we'll go over those 9 counties a little bit later. But that's the only counties that has subscribed to the home improvement contractor program. We also have limited license electricians and limited license plumbers. So those are also licenses that are for under $25,000 worth of work. So who's required to be licensed? Again, for a general contractor, anybody that has a project that's over $25,000 is required to be a general contractor. When I say general contractor in Tennessee, that means a general contractor goes by the monetary value. And so some other states may call a general contractor just a commercial builder or a residential builder, but we call a general contractor in Tennessee the over $25,000 variety. So you can be a general contractor and be an electrician, a general contractor and be a plumber. It all goes off the monetary value of the projects. And so you must be licensed if you are a prime contractor on a project. You must be licensed if the project is over $25,000. If you are a subcontractor to a prime contractor, there are a little bit different rules about being a subcontractor, but the bullet here, again, if you are a subcontractor to a prime contractor, but you are an electrician, a mechanical, a plumber, HVAC, or roofing, and that portion of your subcontract is above $25,000, you must also be licensed as well. Where you don't have to be licensed as a subcontractor is say that you're a subcontractor and the only thing you do is concrete work, and you do a concrete job that you're working underneath a prime contractor. That prime contractor assumes the risk and everything for your concrete work, even if it's over $25,000. But you have to be licensed if it's over $25,000 if it's anything electrical, mechanical, HVAC, and roofing. So that falls in the statute. That's a little bit of a nuance. We have questions all the time about prime contractors, subcontractors, and so I just want to kind of clarify that. We also have misnomers about people calling themselves subcontractors. A lot of people will say that I'm working on a project for this homeowner and I'm subcontracted. I'm doing this extension or whatever, but I'm a subcontractor. If you're dealing directly with the project owner or the homeowner, you are a prime contractor. You are not a subcontractor. So the only way you can be a subcontractor is you're working for a properly licensed contractor that is dealing with the project owner or the homeowner. So, and again, we also have questions about construction management. I'm just a construction manager, but yes, you must still be licensed as well. And so we get questions about that all the time. I'm going to pause here see some questions that are popping up. Anything that we need to address publicly, Kathy?
No, I think I got it. Some of it's going to be addressed later on as you go through, but I got it.
Okay, sounds good. Appreciate it. All right, we'll keep moving along. So going back to the general contractor, anything over $25,000 is we consider a general contractor. And on that general contractor's license, we have classifications that we put on that general contractor's license. And these here are the major categories of these classifications. You can see BC means building construction, and so a BC you would see a BC on your license, or you could see a LMC, which means masonry. And so you can have multiple. You can be a BC, and you can also be an electrical CE. So you can have multiple classifications on your license. And below these major categories, we also have subcategories too. So if you have a very specialized work that you want to be licensed for, there's a bunch of different subcategories as well. And we have a link to our classification guide on our website. And so just wanted to kind of show that because sometimes we get questions about, is there a different license? I've got my residential contractor's license. Is there a different license to be an electrician? So short answer is no. It's all about adding classifications to your license. And some of these classifications require a trade exam. And so in order to get a classification added, You've got to go through the proper channels to be to have a trade exam, or and we'll get to it in a slide or so. Talk about reciprocity. If you're licensed somewhere else in another state, there could be a reciprocity avenue to get that classification added to your license without having to take another exam. And so, if there are any questions on that, we'll keep moving. Our board also regulates the bidding process. This really kind of applies really for I guess projects from the state or from the public, but this really applies to in any bidding project. You've got to be licensed before you can even bid, and so we run into situations all the time, or not all the time, but sometimes that I need to get licensed because I bid on this project, and so that's a violation. You cannot bid on anything unless you're licensed. And so, and also, if you are bidding on a large project, say from the state for something, your subcontractors, again, going back to your subcontractors, must also be licensed. If you list an electrical, a roofer, a plumber, mechanical, and HVAC, those must also be licensed as well. So there's a lot of information here on this slide, but the bottom line is you need to be licensed, and to ensure that all of your subcontractors are licensed as applicable if you're going to be bidding on projects. And then our board has the ability to find or to investigate and potentially fine any violations that we get notified about. We talked about reciprocity just briefly a couple slides ago, but here's the list of the states that we currently have reciprocity agreements with. And what this means is strictly a trade exam waiver. So it's not a whole license reciprocity agreement. It is, and so, for example, if you're licensed in Louisiana with residential, and you took the exam in Louisiana, you can get one of their license verification forms and use that to apply for residential or BCA residential classification here in Tennessee and not have to take the exam. And so, but you still have to follow all other licensing requirements that we'll go over here in just a little while. So if you're licensed in other states, it's worth checking out who we have reciprocity agreements with currently. That way that you don't need to necessarily take an exam for Tennessee if you've taken an exam in one of these other states, or the NASCL exam. And again, this is only for trade exams only, not a full license.
Chris.
Yes.
I'm just going to jump in here real quick. There's a lot of questions for classifications. We will go over that when we get to the application processing part. And I'll share. They lost sound.
I hear you.
You can hear me?
Let me mute to make that help.
Can you not hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Can anybody else hear me? You still have sound. Okay. I just want to make sure. So we're going to go over the financials. We will go over the classifications and the exams and the subcategories of those classifications. Okay, so when we get to that part, we will address that, and we will also have a Q&A after. And this video will also be recorded. Okay, so I just want to let you know we will address those questions when we get to that section. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We will get to Janine is the rock star. She's going to have everything that you would need to know here. I'm just kind of setting the stage here. Our repository, we have a system that we use called Core. And that's where we house all of your information, all the licenses information but it's also linked to a public portal. And so if there's somebody out in the public that wants to verify that you or anybody that is licensed, they can go to our website. Right there, right on our website front page, there's a verify license, and it's a public portal, and they can type in a license number, they can type in a name or whatever. It'll come up with all the license options that that it finds in our system. It's not only us, but you can, if you have a name, a similar name, you may come up as a contractor, and you also might have somebody come up as a barber as well. So there's a lot of information that's on that website to verify a license. It's not just contractors; it's all of regulatory boards. But that's good for the public to know as well, and they can search and they can see what classifications a contractor has, what their monetary limit is, and things like that. So. So we often get a lot of requests. Is so and so licensed, and so we try to direct them to the website where they can check for themselves. But it's also good to know that once you're licensed, your information will be there too. All right, now I'm gonna pass it over to Janine. This is the steps to be licensed. It looks daunting. There are some things that take a longer lead time than others, and so we'll pass it over, and we'll give you some tips and hopefully some good information of how to navigate this and be a first time go at everything when you submit. So I will. Do you want to share your screen now, Janine?
You can keep it up.
Okay.
Yeah, you can keep your slideshow up for this section, and then when I go through the resources and application pages, I'll take over.
All right, over to you.
So good morning. If any of you have joined late, my name is Janine Miller. I'm the administrative manager for the Board of Licensing Contractors. And we're going to go over in this section how to become a licensed contractor, how the application process, what's required, and we will cover some of the forms that are needed, some of the common mistakes, and what is, insurance. We're gonna cover a lot of that stuff. And again, a lot of this is going to be actually all of this is going to be recorded. It will be posted on our public meetings page after the webinar to rewatch. Okay, so multiple things are required for this license. It is not an easy license to get. However, once you do get this license, it's easy to maintain as long as you keep yourself updated with how to manage and maintain your license with your renewals. The major things required for this license is the exams, if they apply to what you're applying for, the financial statement. Every initial contractor is required to submit a financial statement that is prepared by a peer-reviewed licensed CPA. It has to be a review or an audit. Now, this is only a requirement for your initial license, depending on the monetary limit that you're requesting. And again, we'll go over this in detail in just a moment. Will depend if it's an audit, if an audit is required or a review. You will need reference letters from either past employers or clients. You'll need to show proof that you have general liability insurance and workman's comp insurance. There are some exemptions that you can apply for as well if that applies to you and your business. You also have to show proof that you have registration with the Secretary of State. So we're going to go over that. We're going to go over the application itself, the signatures and the notarizations required. There is an application fee of $250. And then the processing of these applications do go very quickly. We will go over the forms and our application resources. Let me share. Is it share? Oh, it is shared. Look at that. Can you see my screen? I still see your screen. Chris.
Let me stop my screen. You can share yours.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Let me see if it. Is it share? Oh, I didn't hit the share button. Okay. Let's see. All right, you should be able to see it now. Yeah. Can you see the online for contractors licenses? Can you see that? Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure. And I lost my webinar, my Q&A screen. So, okay, I don't know why it does that. Oh, here we go. Yes, I see yeses. There we are. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so this is available on our website. Kathy will link this resource for you to our website. This is an application packet. And this is for general contractors. These are for your licenses that have monetary value of $25,000 or more. That gives you the licensing to be able to bid on larger projects. And based on some counties and different jurisdictions, they require this license over some of the limited licenses. So always check with local jurisdictions before starting a project on requirements. This application packet also covers and it has a lot of information I'm going to go over, like the experience list, the contractor's affidavit, the reference page, the power of attorney, who needs to fill that out, workman's comp, the financial statements, exam scores, etc. Okay.
Can you, on that first page, we have some outdated information at the bottom of that page there. Do not worry about getting your application in before a board meeting. We process applications as we get them, and we pass them through our board electronically. And it's only a rare occasion that your application would be held up at a board meeting. So do not worry about that. We need to get that removed. But just want to highlight that if you run across that.
Yeah, the board meetings, you would only be required to go if they have questions on your experience or if you disagree with what they suggest for your license. So one of the most common things and one of the very first things on your application process that you may receive a deficiency letter for is your experience. Okay. So when you submit your initial application, and if you're going to be applying for multiple classifications, okay, let's just say you're a residential contractor, you have experience doing home remodeling or ground up experience for single family homes, and you also are an electrician, and you want to apply for the CE electrical classification. Make sure that you submit at least 3 to 4 projects in each classification minimum. And if you are applying for a full classification, you need to show that you have the ground up experience. So I'm going to share real quick the classification outline to elaborate a little bit more on that experience. Let me scroll up here. I'm going to zoom in. I don't know if that helps y'all see it better. But if you look at the classification outline, we have 4 major categories when it comes to ground up construction. We've got the full BC that covers residential, commercial, and industrial contracting. You can have either just the BC-A that is strictly for residential contracting, and this is ground up residential contracting, okay? There's also the BC-A/R, and what that classification is, that is a restricted residential that caps your monetary limit, okay? And this classification can be earned from a course. So you will see next to these classifications if there's an exam required, okay? So when you review the classification outline, if it says exam required, that means you will have to take an exam, a trade exam through PSI, who is our testing vendor. That information will be in this packet. Or if you want the limited, you can test for this through many different trade course providers. And what that does is that waives your requirement to take the exams. However, you're capped at a hard stop at $125,000 per project. Okay. So this is a good option for home remodeling. If you're just building back decks or, wanting to do larger home projects, but you're not building ground up experience, this might be a good option to start. And then the BC-B, that is our commercial classification. And then we also have our small commercial, which is a different exam requirement. There's no trade school that you can take in lieu of those exams. You do have to take those exams. For the commercial, small commercial, you have a cap. You'll have a monetary value cap at 1.5 million. Okay. If you take the full BC or the BC-B exam, that gives you the option for unlimited monetary value with that testing, just the testing. A lot of things come into play when it comes to monetary value and on your license, and we'll get to that. And then there's also the industrial contractors, the BC-C. And that is for manufacturing plants, factories, industrial contracting, and a lot of mechanical and industrial classifications. I see those together a lot. So those are the major ground up building classifications. And what those building categories cover is construction and all of these subcategories. So here, the building categories, you'll see numbers 1, which goes all the way over to page 3 to number 34. So all of these subcategories under the building is covered. So if you are a full BC contractor, you're covered to do all of these subcategories. I don't know if you can see my mouse or not, but all of these subcategories here.
Your page is not moving.
It's not moving. Okay. And all through 34. And that also covers, I saw a lot of questions for subcontractors. Okay. This will cover subcontractors. Let's say you do ground up experience for residential contracting, but there's a person you like to use specifically for interior painting because they do a good job, and they can be covered under your license over the monetary value of $125,000 as a subcontractor. But keep in mind, you're the person responsible for that work, okay? If you hire subs, or if you're a subcontractor wondering, do I need a license? Because you do jobs for a prime contractor all the time, I'll just say for interior painting, and they make sure they have the proper licensing, that you're covered under their monetary limit and their classification. Because if they do not have the monetary limit or the classification on that license, you are not going to be covered under that license as a subcontractor. And I'm sure there's going to be a ton of questions on that. We can go over more in detail a lot of the subcontractor questions in the Q&A. And we also have a lot of information on our website for that too. But just keep in mind, if you are a subcontractor or wanting to become a subcontractor, make sure the prime contractor you're working for has a license. And just know that in Tennessee, if you are working directly for a homeowner, that homeowner is not a prime contractor. Okay, so just be advised of that.
Also, going to jump in real quick. We get questions or clarifications all the time. Somebody will take and pass with flying colors the full BC exam, but when they list their experience, they only show, framing or painting or roofing. The board will only grant you what the experience that you have. So if, for example, if you take an exam for the full BC, but you only have roofing experience, they're only going to give you the BC 21 until you come back and show greater experience in the full ground up experience for BC in both commercial, industrial, and residential. So just because you take an exam doesn't mean that you're going to automatically get that classification. Just want to clarify that.
Yes, and that goes back to the experience sheet, which we're going to go over. So the board does have the right to change your classification that you're applying for based on the experience that you report. So if you're, inquiring to apply, please don't be discouraged. If you want to become a ground up contractor, but you don't have that experience yet, if you already took the score, you're one up already, or the exam, just go out there and get that experience as a subcontractor with the prime. Even if you have a contractor's license, get that experience, and then you can add the classification later on your license, okay? We have multiple license classifications and specialties. I saw someone asking about tree services. There's multiple different types of tree services, like storm damage cleanup, there's tree trimming, there's landscaping if you do more than tree services, if you do like tree removal and planting and landscaping, a lot of that would cover tree services as well. So just depending on what your intended use is for that classification, just make sure that you are very detailed in your experience and what you're wanting to apply for, and the board will definitely give you the right classification. And if you write something wrong on your application as far as the classification is concerned, don't worry, we will correct it on our side when processing your application. And we'll also let you know. We won't just blindside you. We'll say, this is a better classification in what you're trying to apply for. We have different classifications for heavy construction. This is your oil field construction, your dams, your mining surface underground, structural steel erection, like you see those big cranes, demolition or movement of structures, foundation construction, pile driving, so rigging, crane rigging. So that is what we consider heavy construction. Okay, as you can see, there's no exam required for this one. But just because it says no exam, that means no trade exam. You still have to take the Tennessee State Business and Law. Okay. There is special classifications for highway, railroad, and airport construction. Okay. And that is, bridges, culverts, base paving, railroad, airport, traffic safeties, all that is covered under the HRA. And as you can see, there's, subcategories. So I saw someone ask a question for like the CMC and the CMC-A, like those differences are specialties under that classification. So if you apply for a subclassification, you're only applying to specialize in that. So if you have a, let's just say a CMC, you took the CMC exam, but you only do plumbing and gas piping, and you also do HVAC, refrigeration, and glass piping, or gas piping, sorry, not glass piping, gas piping, gas piping, then you can apply for those two classifications with the experience that you have with one trade exam. The CMC will cover both, and we'll only give you a CMC-A or a CMC-C. Now, if you have experience in all of this mechanical contracting, then you will be eligible for the full CMC. And if you have a full CMC classification, what that does is that covers you for everything, okay, under this classification. So you will get coverage to do all subclassifications under any major classification. Same with the CE. The CE is the electrical contracting, If you only have experience with electrical signage, putting up billboards or electrical signs in front of storefronts or et cetera. But you also have experience in installing electrical in a new house, or doing underground electrical conduit installations, or connecting solar panels, or anything of that sort, you may be eligible for the full CE instead of just a sub classification. And when reviewing the classification outline, next to each one, it will tell you if if an exam is required or not. And it will tell you what exam you need to take. And then we also have some specialty environmental classifications. Just make sure that you do review this, because some other requirements are required for some of these licenses, like through TDEC or through another department, especially when it comes to environment, okay? So we do have like underground storage tanks, if you're installing septic systems, or if you're removing hazardous materials, or any kind of removing of waste, hazardous waste removal, mold remediation, or any kind of air, water, or soil remediation. All of that requires pre-approval as well through TDEC. Okay, so just make sure that you check with that as well. And then, of course, we have specialty medical gas piping, and these are for your hospitals or surgical centers, that kind of stuff. Okay, so this is our classification outline. Definitely review this tool, review this resource before applying for your license for your business. Okay. And with that being said, keep that in mind when we're going to go back now to the experience sheet for contractors, because this experience sheet, this is also, you can fill this out online on the online application, or if you're filling out a paper application or we ask you for additional experience, this is the sheet that we'll ask you to fill out and email in or upload to your account. It can also be a resume, it can be a portfolio, but just keep in mind, anytime that you fill this out, you need to fill it out in its entirety. We need to know if you were a contractor, or if you were a subcontractor, or if you were an employee of a contractor. If you fall under subcontractor or employee of a contractor, we want to know who your prime contractor was and that license number. Okay. If it's out of state and you don't know what their out of state license number is, that's fine. But we will ask for the license number, and if you don't provide it, we will look it up. And if we can't find it, we'll send a letter asking. So just be advised, if you don't want to hold up your application in any way, make sure that you are filling this out in its entirety. We need to know who the employer or the customer or prime contractor is, where it was performed. It says state, city, and state performed. I see people all the time just writing an address, like 1256 Hummingbird Lane. But that doesn't tell us, that doesn't answer the question. We need to know the city and the state it was performed, not just an address. Keep that in mind. We need to know the date, preferably the end date of the project, and the total contract amount. Now, if you were an employee of a contractor, you can just put hourly wage, you can put an hourly wage. But if you are a subcontractor or a contractor, we need to know the total project amount for what you're listing. And we also need to know the scope of work, okay? So this is where it's going to get tricky, and this is what the board really looks at when looking at your applications, is your experience. So if you did ground up new construction, make sure that you list that. You can put ground up new construction, or if you're a specialty contractor, you can put storm damage cleanup, removal of trees, paving and grading. So you can put all the things that you did for that project in detail if it's more than just tree removal. So make sure that you are very detailed in your experience, especially if you're shooting for a major classification. And make sure that you list multiple projects. They also want to see recent experience. So make sure that you are showing experience that you've been active at least within the last 2 to 3 years. If your experience is older than 2 to 3 years, they may question to see if you're still up with code, especially if it comes to anything mechanical, plumbing, or electrical. If you don't have recent experience, they're going to want to know why there's a gap in your experience. And if you took an exam a long time ago, let's just say, for example, you took the electrical exam like 7 years ago and you haven't done any contracting work for about 5 or 6 years in electrical work, but you're applying for an electrical license with an old exam, they may say that they don't think you're up to code and they may make you retest. Okay, so just make sure that you're putting current experience. And if you don't have current experience, I would suggest maybe trying to become an employee of a contractor to obtain that, or a subcontractor. So that's one thing that I want to stress. And this is one of the largest holdups of applications, this failure to provide thorough experience. Again, they want to see, so if you're applying for an electrical contractor in a specialty, just make sure that you're listing that experience and at least 3 projects per classification. And you can add as many experience lists as you want on your online application, or you can upload again portfolios, resumes. But if you do that, just make sure you include this information. Okay, if you don't have the project or the dates or the city and state, then we will ask. You'll get a letter and it'll hold up your application. I think I was pretty thorough. Is there a lot of questions in chat with experience at all? I'm trying to be as thorough as possible with this one.
I think we're caught up on
Okay.
experience, but there was a question about the difference between CMCA and CMCC. I saw it somewhere.
Yeah. So again, on the classification classification outline, it will go over that for you. Let me go to that section here. There you go, CMC, mechanical contracting. So it should say here that you're covered under all the subcategories if you have a full CMC, but if you just have plumbing and gas piping, which is very common to only have a CMC-A, there is an exam required, and there is a pre-approval requirement for that exam. So if it says pre-approval required, we have an application for that, and that could be part of your question. We have to see that you have plumbing experience. You need a minimal amount of plumbing experience before we approve you to take the exam. So there is a pre-approval application that you'll have to email into the board to say, yes, I have plumbing experience. List your experience or education. We will review it. And if we see, okay, this person or individual does have the experience, we will let the testing vendor know that you're eligible to sit for this exam, and then you can take it. And once you take that exam, then you can add it with your application, your passing scores, along with your experience. That does not waive the requirement to fill out the experience on the application. So just make sure that you be prepared to re-enter that information during the application process. Does that help answer your question for the CMC-A? I know someone had that. Maybe, I don't know if that person's not here or not, but there is a lot of information on this sheet form. If you do have questions, you can always call our customer service center or send in an email. We'll be able to help elaborate if needed. But again, don't stress too much on that. We will correct the classification for you on the application side. If we see, oh, they meant this classification, we'll fix it. Okay, I'm going to move on.
There was a quick question here. I think we can answer at this point. Talking about what about experience not under a contractor, but projects under 25K? Can we list that as an experience?
You can, yeah. So with the experience, going back to that, one thing that you might run into is if you don't have a lot of big project experience, but you do have a lot of smaller experience, and this is common for like your BC-A restricted residential contractors, or if you're applying for a contractor's license and you currently have a home improvement license, you're not going to have big projects unless you worked for a prime contractor as a sub. Okay, so if you don't have a lot of experience for big projects, but you have the financials to support $1 million monetary limit, the board's going to look at your experience and grant your monetary limit based on your experience. Okay, so let's just say like your largest projects were $25,000, like you were repairing fences, building back decks, building awnings or roof repair for $25,000, but you want a bigger contractor license. They may look, okay, he took the exam, he's got the financials, but he doesn't have the experience to back up that large a project. So what they'll do is they'll look at it and they'll determine a safe monetary limit for consumers based on your experience to let you get started. So you may only be approved for like a $500,000 monetary limit to start, which caps you at $500,000 per project. Just want to be clear on that. It's not total year, it's per project. So they may give you a $500,000 cap to start. And then after a year worth of experience, then you can apply for a monetary increase and you can show that you have more experience, and then you can increase your monetary limit based on your experience, if that makes sense. But it is, remember, if you have a restricted residential, you have a hard cap at 125,000. Okay. So does that answer your experience, your project value size question? One thing also, if you have multiple people, if you have a partner on your license, or an officer that does have project experience, and they're also going to be a QA for larger size, and you're going into business together. So, person A has big experience with commercial projects and person B has smaller residential experience, and you two are coming together and applying for a license. You can use each other's experience to show project value size, if that helps as well. So if one person has a little experience, but the other has a lot of experience, that'll benefit you for the larger monetary limit. Okay, any other questions on experience and money value? Okay. I hope that helped. Okay, so I'm going to move on. Where's my, let me just, okay, here we are. So next thing that is required for applying for contractors is your contractor affidavit page. A lot of people don't like to answer these questions, but you got to. If you leave a box unchecked or you don't fill it out in its entirety, we will send a letter and it will hold up your application. It will just be a hard stop. You need to make sure everything matches on your application, what the organization of your business is going to be. We need to know if you write I'm applying for Jones Brothers Construction, but here the name of the business is Jones Brother DBA Miller Brothers LLC. We're going to reject it. So just make sure that the name of the business entity is the same as what you put on the application. And it also has to match on your certificate of insurance, your financial statement. So that is one thing that will hold up your application. Just make sure that the name of the business entity matches. Okay. You also need to disclose if there's any felonies, bankruptcies, complaints, have you bid without a license over certain monetary values, you have to fill this out. And then you have to have everyone who is either a qualifying agent or an officer or an owner, or even if it's a small percent of ownership, they need to sign this and it needs to be notarized. Okay, so it needs to be signed and notarized. If you have someone that lives in a different state and they can't sign the same page, they can submit their separate page. Just make sure it's notarized. Okay. Letter of reference, please use the board format letter of reference. You can have a self-generated letter of reference from someone else, but make sure that it's not you filling it out. Like we see this all the time, same people's handwriting on this, and you know, it's like, are we going to question this or not? But just make sure that you're having somebody else fill this out. It could be a past employer. You'll see up here, past client, past employer, a codes official, could be any one of those individuals. They need to fill this out. They need to sign and date it. You can submit this in. It's not one of those things where they have to submit it. You submit it with your application. So have them fill it out and give it back to you. The power of attorney. This is only required if your qualifying agent, okay, just to be clear, your qualifying agent is the person who passes your trade exam, right? We consider that person as your subject matter expert and what you know, your project manager, the person that is has the experience and the knowledge to oversee those residential or commercial projects. If they do not have a percentage of ownership on this license or this business entity, or a very small percentage of ownership, they have to fill out this page. The owner and the qualifier need to sign the power of attorney page for the qualifier, okay? Again, this is only if the qualifying agent does not have ownership or very small percentage of ownership. I believe it's 20% or less. This is the request for license verification. What this is our trade exam waiver agreement. So if you took an electrical exam in Ohio, you took their trade exam, that reciprocates with us. So you would have to have the state of Ohio fill this out saying, yes, Bob Jones took the electrical exam and his license is still active and in good standing with the state of Ohio. You could have them fill this out. And what that does is that waives the requirement for you to go take the CE trade exam or the NASCLA electrical exam. So that waives your option to take the trade. So if you did take a trade in another state, make sure that you check and see what states we do reciprocate with, because it might save you some time. But it only counts, will only apply it if your license is active in that reciprocating state. Now this goes into insurance. So a lot of the things that we send letters for is the certificate of insurance. We need to see that the board is listed as the certificate holder, or the name doesn't match, or you don't have the right policy limits, or we don't see workman's comp. A lot of people want to know, do I need to have workman's comp? And what this page does, this is the workman's comp insurance questionnaire. If you just answer this, it'll tell you if you need workman's comp or not. Okay. So reasons you would not need to have a workman's comp policy. Reason number one is if you have 5 or less employees. Okay. So if you have 5 or less employees, you do not need to have workman's comp insurance, but you are required to register with the Department of Labor for workman's comp exemption registration. Okay. And not just you, but each of those individuals working under you. Say it's you and a partner and a secretary and a project manager, and you hire subs. Those 4 people need to go register for workman's comp exemption, and we need to see that. Okay. So each person will have to have that exemption registration with the Department of Labor or proof of workman's comp insurance. If you have 5 or less, regardless, you need it. You need to have the workman's comp, it doesn't matter. Or not 5 or less, sorry, 5 or more. 5 or more, you have to have the workman's comp. 5 or less, it's the exemption registration or proof of insurance. Now, let's say you're a BC-AR and you're like a one-man shop. It's just you do majority of the projects, but you hire subcontractors to help. So if you work by yourself as a project manager and you hire subs, you need to have workman's comp insurance to cover the subcontractors or the workman's comp exemption registration for yourself. Okay, it's one or the other if you're going to be hiring subcontractors and it's just you. And if it's just you and you're saying that you can build a $3 million house by yourself and you have no employees whatsoever and you're going to be doing the direct work, not hiring subcontractors, then there's an exemption for that, but that's very, very rare. It's common in home improvement, but rare for contractors. If you're one of those people, we might want to know how you can manage doing that. So just, that's just a question. But that is what is, if you fill this out, you don't need to submit this with your application, but this will help you understand if you need to have the coverage or not, because they will ask these questions online. So these questions are going to be asked online and it will that then you have to have insurance, etc. This is the attestation that you can legally work in the United States. You don't need to submit this page with your online application, but if you're doing this with paper, you do need to submit this page and proof of photo ID if you're doing it by paper, okay? Now here we're going to go into financial worksheets and monetary values, limits, what's required, how much money do you have to have, etc. So this is a big common holdup for all contractor applications, and the biggest deficiency letters that go out for initials is financials. So we're going to talk about this. So you have the right to request your monetary limit on your application. Okay, so you might say, I'm applying for $1 million monetary limit to do commercial and residential work. What do you have to show financially? So in order to be eligible for $1 million monetary limit, your financials need to show that you have 10% of that $1 million in your net worth and your working capital. It's not one or the other, it's both. So you will have to show that 10%, which is $100,000, in both your net worth and your working capital. Also be advised that if you are just starting a company, a lot of people say, oh, I'm just starting a company, I don't have anything, I'm just putting money, just cash, strictly cash in a business bank account, but I don't have anything else. And here's my $100,000 to qualify for $1 million. We will not accept that. The board doesn't like cash only. And I know that is the fastest way to get a CPA report. That is probably the cheapest way because it doesn't take them a lot of time because you say, I have no assets, I just have cash. And also, the board recognizes as cash is there one day and gone the next. So they don't accept cash only financial statements. If you submit a cash only financial statement, you're going to get a letter saying that we need hard assets on the line, either in the form of a personal financial statement or a corporate financial statement. So you're going to get a letter having to show financial stability in another way. And that is going to put your personal property on the line. So I highly, 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 highly recommend that when you are starting up a business, you get some kind of hard assets, buy some trucks, get the titles transferred in your business name, get some tools, get a brick and mortar building for the business or some type of hard asset. Make sure that is reported on your CPA report, or else you're going to have to put some of your personal assets on the line. That is one of the most common reasons why we send letters for financials, is because cash only. And a lot of people will say, well, how can I get financials? I don't have any money in my business yet. You got to save or get a business loan or open a line of credit. You got to do something. We're not going to give a license to someone that doesn't have financial support or financials to support their business. That's just one form of insurance for consumer protection. So that is why we do this. Okay. Because we definitely don't want to give someone a license to do projects for $1 million, but they don't have tools, they don't have trucks, they don't have money, they don't have the financial support to do a project for $1 million. That's just not going to happen. Okay. Make sure that your first financial statement is done by a licensed CPA, and it does need to be with a peer review firm. So when you're shopping for CPAs, make sure that you do your due diligence and ask them for their license number so you can look them up. Ask them if they're with a peer-reviewed firm. We do have resources on our website where you can look it up to confirm that they are. And I do know that there's a couple of CPAs in the state of Tennessee that specializes in contractor applications. So if you're looking for one and just Google contractor CPA Tennessee, you might find some that specialize in this, and they'll advise you accordingly based on your financials and your financial standing. Any questions on financials? I can see. If there's any questions?
I think we're caught up on questions right now.
Okay. They're probably falling asleep. This stuff is boring. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, so this monetary worksheet that's in here, this just kind of helps you understand how it's calculated. This does not count as a financial statement, just so you know. We've seen people have a CPA fill this out and send it, and we don't need it. It's going to get kicked back. So
I guess
can
you talk about the what we consider unlimited?
Oh, unlimited. So unlimited financials, you have to request specifically unlimited, and it's anything over the monetary value of $3 million is considered unlimited. So if you are one of those big commercial contractors that build giant skyscraper hotels for Hilton, obviously you need an unlimited license. You have to request unlimited. You have to show that you have more than 300,000 in both your net worth and your working capital, and your financials need to be audited. Okay. So there's a difference with a reviewed financial statement and an audit. Audit usually takes a little bit longer. It can be a little bit more difficult to find a CPA to do that. They're way more expensive than a review. But that is what is required to have an unlimited license. We need an audit for your initial application. Once you get to the renewal process, it can be a compilation or a review or an audit if you just have them done anyway because you have a pension plan or whatever the situation is. But you will have to still get a CPA prepared compilation, review, or an audit with every biannual renewal with an unlimited license. Okay. If you have a 1.5 monetary limit, the board grants you, let's say, a $2 million monetary limit, you have to show a compilation or a review with your biannual renewals. Compilation is not hard to get. Those cost a lot less money. They're like a couple $100 to have a CPA generate one of those. But that has to be submitted if you have a monetary value over 1.5 million with your biannual renewals. Just keep that in mind. Unless there's a rule change, then you want to stay up to date with those two because legislation likes to change things every once in a while, and those rules change probably the most is financial requirements. All right, any other questions for financials right now? I can't see, so.
Janine, can you go over the 10% again?
Yeah. So the 10% is required for your you have to show that you have 10% in the monetary limit that you're requesting. So if you're requesting $2 million for a BC-B license, you have to show that you have $200,000 in your working capital and $200,000 in your net worth. So it's not together combined, it's each your net worth and your working capital. If you want to know, well, what qualifies as my net worth? What qualifies as my working capital? We do have balance sheets on our website, and this is what's required for your renewals. You can hand submit these if you have a monetary limit list less than 1.5 million with your renewals. But this is a good tool to look what is a current asset, what is a non-current asset, what's a current liability, and what's a long-term liability. And then it gives you the formula here down here at the bottom to figure out what your working capital is and what your net worth is. And it even says here that it must be 10% of your monetary limit. Okay. So this is just a good cheat sheet if you need that, if you're trying to figure it out before you go to a CPA and spend a couple $1,000s to get a review done. If you just want to do an estimate of your financial standing, you can use this balance sheet to help you calculate that, an estimated balance for yourself before you go to a CPA, and that could be helpful. That's what I would do if I was applying for a contractor list. I'd be like, okay, I got $100,000 cash. I got about $300,000 worth of truck tools and drill bits, or whatever it is that you specialize in. I also have retirement accounts and IRAs, or a line of credit. A line of credit is considered, a current asset, but it's also a current liability if you have a balance on that credit limit. So just keep that in mind before you go to a CPA, just to make sure that you do. And also, it's common for if you go to a CPA and have them do a review and they said, this is what your net worth is and this is what your working capital is. Let's say that the CPA found that you only have $140,000 in your working capital, but you have $400,000 in your net worth. We go by the lesser. Okay. So if you only have $140,000 in your working capital, that's what we're going to go by. And you're only going to be eligible for a monetary limit of 1.4 million with that. Okay. So if you want that unlimited, or you want the 3 million, you're going to have to increase your working capital, and you can supplement that with a bigger line of credit or a personal financial statement. That's when you're putting your personal property. We don't recommend that. Or a corporate financial if you're a subsidiary of a bigger corporation. Okay. Does that help answer the question? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. All right. So that, in a nutshell, is all the requirements for your big contractor's license. It is not an easy, like I said, it's not an easy license to get, but once you do get it, it's fairly easy to maintain it. If you look at the online resources, it will go through the personal financial statement. If you already know, I only have cash, I don't have trucks, I don't have tools. I'm just, BC-AR or a sole proprietorship. If it's just you funding your own, smaller business and you're not an LLC, then this is when a personal financial statement is going to be required. You will have to do this because you are a sole proprietorship. So, and a CPA still needs to do a review for that, even if you are a sole proprietorship. If you do get a personal guarantee or a corporate guarantee, it is often mistakes are made here by this not being filled out or being notarized or in the wrong name. So just make sure that if you are going that route of doing a personal financial statement or a corporate financial statement, that this is filled out in its entirety. Okay. And correctly, or else it's going to get kicked back. If you do a line of credit to help increase your working capital, you can do that. Just make sure it's in the board format. If it's not in the board format, we will not accept it. Banks don't like to do that sometimes. So if that bank doesn't, you go to a smaller bank and they might be happy to open a line of credit for you in the board format. So just be advised that we will only accept a line of credit if it's in the board format. And what that means, just to translate it into English, is what that means is they will report to us if you cancel it. And if you cancel a line of credit or a bond, they legally are obligated to report to the board that you changed that financial standing, and then we're going to question you for an updated financial statement. Okay. So that's what we mean by board format. But other than that, that's what's required for your major contractor licenses for your initial applications. Are there any questions on that? We will have a open Q&A after, but if you have any questions, please let me know now so I can refer back to something if I need to. See if I can see. I don't see any.
I think we are good.
All right, then we'll move on to the other licenses and the requirements and what they cover. I will stop sharing here.
Right. I'll pick it up. All right, so this again. Okay. So thank you, Janine, for all of that. That's a lot of information, but I think it's very, very helpful to go into some detail, and hopefully we'll have some other questions later on. If think on that, we'll answer them here at the end. But moving on, we do have a lot of resources on our website, and but just a disclaimer that our website is changing, will be updated. We don't know the exact day that's going to happen, but we do have some folks from other departments working behind the scenes on updating our website. So you might, one day it'll happen to us, one day it'll be there, and the next day it's something, information will still be there, but it might be in a different format. So just stand by for website updates. We do have a lot of frequently asked questions on the website as well. And so if you think of a question after we're done, you can always, call in or email us a question, and we can help you. But there is a lot of information on our website as well. So we're going to talk a little bit about licenses for the under $25,000 variety, which are a home improvement, electrician, and plumber. And we also have a special category for HVAC. We don't have, Tennessee does not have a special HVAC contractor's license, for under $25,000. We do have it for over $25,000, but we can talk a little bit more about HVAC and under $25,000 as we go through here. So the first one is the home improvement license. Home improvement license is for residential projects that are valued between $3,000 and $24,999. And so, but that home improvement license is only required right now in 9 counties. And you can see here in my screen here in the red here that there's these 9 counties are where the home improvement license is required. So Bradley, Davidson, Haywood, Hamilton, Knox, Marion, Robertson, Rutherford, and Shelby. So you think the major cities, you got your Memphis area, your Nashville area, minus Williamson County, they're not on here. You've got Knoxville and Chattanooga areas, basically are the areas that have subscribed to the home improvement license. And so that is important to know when you go and start pulling permits. They're going to be asking, for your license, contractor's license for your home improvement license. And so that sometimes catches people as a surprise. And so we do have that in effect in those 9 counties only. So are there any questions about that so far? As far as licensing for a home improvement contractor, it's not as onerous as the general contractor, but there still is some steps that you need to take. You still need to have your insurance. You still need to be registered with the Secretary of State. You still had to have your workers' comp questionnaire, go through that whole process, just like a general contractor. The biggest difference is the financial statement. There is not necessarily a financial statement needed for a home improvement license, but you are required to have a surety bond or irrevocable line of credit instead. And so a $10,000 surety bond is I would say the 99% method that everybody uses. And so there's the instructions are on our website, but that is one key difference from a home improvement contractor license and a general contractor's license. And so any questions at all about home improvement before we move on to the other licenses? Okay. And then just quickly moving on to our limited license electrician license. It is I would say a very simple process. This is probably, I think, our easiest license to obtain as far as the process. Very simple. But again, this is we license the individual. So this is an individual license. I will kind of backtrack a little bit. The general contractor's license and the home improvement contractor's license, we license the entity, not the individual. So that's a key distinction between our limited license plumbers and electricians versus a home improvement and a general contractor. And so if there's any questions about that, that is the distinction that we have here is for electricians and plumbers of the LLE and LLP, we'll get to in just a moment. Those are individual license. And so it's really for LLE is you have to pass an exam, proof of citizenship, fill out the application, and basically that is about it. There is no minimum experience required for an LLE. So you can even take the general contractor CE exam, but still apply and get the LLE exam. But the reverse is not true. You can't take an LLE exam and apply for the general contractor CE exam or CE license classification. The opposite does not work in that case. And so that is pretty much it. Again, it's a under $25,000 license. But I would also caution you to make sure that you're checking with the local codes department when you're pulling permits. I would check with them first before you do go and see what their requirements are. If they require an LLE, then obviously you need to get an LLE. But some local jurisdictions have their own licensing requirements, and so I would check with them first before getting an LLE and an LLP, as we're going to talk about here in just a moment. So again, the LLP is very similar to the LLE, with the only exception is you have to show some experience in plumbing before you can apply for the LLP exam. Again, overall, it's a very simple process. Fill out the application, get the exam, show your experience, show your identification, and then your license. But you have to show proof of 1 year's worth of experience. So that's the only difference between really an LLP for a plumber and the LLE for an electrician. Is the plumber LLP has an experience requirement added to it. I know we've gone over those very quickly as far as the home improvement, the LLE, and the LLP. Are there any questions over any of those three licenses? If not,
I can answer that. The classified as 1 year in LLP experience. That's like working as an employee. Let's just say Roto-Rooter. I don't know if they still exist or not, but like say you were an employee for Roto-Rooter for 3 years and you want to obtain your own license and start your own small individual plumber company, just yourself. That's what we're referring to. So you can obtain experience working as an employee, or you could say you have a city license and you only have experience in that city. We can take that, or if you have experience in another state, that'll also qualify. Or working under a prime contractor with that classification.
all right, thank you. Any other questions on home improvement, LLP, or LLE? Just want to hit briefly, I think this is our last slide really. I'll hit renewals. Again, going back for renewals, each one of our licenses, whether it's a general contractor, a home improvement, LLP, or LLE, it is a 2-year license. So after 2 years, you've got to go through the renewal process. What I've got listed here is basically for the general contractor's license, but I wanted to throw it out there that, you know, renewals are for all licenses that we have, and it's a much simplified process, even for general contractors. We talked about the monetary limit, and so this is where it changes a little bit from your initial license to a renewal. If anything, if you have a monetary limit over $1.5 million, the requirement now is a minimum of a CPA compilation report. And so we will still accept a reviewed or audit, but the minimum we need for that 2-year renewal is a compilation report from a CPA, and it's got to be within 12 months from when you submitted it. So please keep that in mind. If you have a limit of 1.5 million or lower, you can provide a self-prepared financial statement, balance sheet, using the example that Janine showed a few minutes ago. You can do a QuickBooks balance sheet, but it has to be a balance sheet, not a profit loss or anything like that. We need to see a balance sheet so we can see your financial standing. And at that time, sometimes your financials do change. If you have a $2 million limit, but your financials are not supporting that anymore, then we may ask you for supplementals, like as Janine's gone over, with a personal financial statement with a guarantee agreement, another line of credit, or you may lower your limit at that point, just to get it approved if you don't want to do any of those supplemental financial documents. And so that does happen. If you want to raise your limit at any point, you will have to, depending on what you're wanting to raise it to, you'll have to provide a CPA reviewed financial statement, or if you're going up to unlimited, it'll have to be an audited financial statement. Again, it's got to be within no older than 12 months for us to accept it. One other thing, we always going to need to have updated insurance. A lot of times we get renewals, we'll submit an insurance document and it's expired. You always got to provide updated insurance when you renew. So that's very important. And one other distinction as well is continuing education. And so if you have a classification, a residential builder classification, a BC-A or a BC-AR for the restricted residential classification, and you've been licensed, your first license was issued on January 1st, 2009 or later, you must provide continuing educational credits, hours of of course credits for 8 hours. And so there's a list of accredited continuing education vendors that we have approved, and it has to be from one of those vendors. Alternatively, if you are part of the Home Builders Association, you can get a certificate that you've been active for the past 2 years in that Home Builders Association. You can provide that in lieu of continuing education a certificate from one of our vendors. And so that oftentimes, but that is only if you have a BCA or a BCA restricted. And so that's if you have just a full BC or a BCB, that's not required. It's only for a BCA or a BCA restricted. So any questions about renewals? And I believe that is it. Right now we're in the middle of a legislative, season. There are bills being proposed, but we don't have any rules or changes in anything right now. But that could always change at a moment's notice. Not aware of anything substantial at this time that's coming in legislative actions. But that's how we have our rules and statutes in place is how we describe them today. So we'll open up the floor for any questions at all, and you're welcome to hang out, to continue posting in the chat, or come on off mute right now and ask a question. We appreciate everybody's time, and if there again questions come up, you can always reach out to this email address, and we'd be happy to answer your questions anytime.
Yeah. If you can't unmute for some reason, like raise your hand, maybe we can.
Or type in the chat that we'll try to unmute you from our end if it's not working. For the BCAR, yes, there is an 8-hour class. Every time you renew, you've got to provide 8 hours worth of continuing education credits, and those are through our approved providers that are on our website. And that's only if you have got your license after January 1st, 2009. So some folks been licensed for a while. So anybody that was first licensed before January 1st, 2009, they are not required to have that.
It's just over the 2-year period, Jordan. Just before your next renewal. Or you could, if you join the, the homeowners association, yeah, then that counts. But you do have to show they have certificates for you. The continuing education.
Yes, continuing education is only for the BC-A or the BC-A restricted.
And that was a legislation that was put into rule, I want to say, 2021, maybe? 21, 20, it was the year of COVID, I remember that.
The latest legislation that affected this board was, I guess, almost 2 years ago about the compilation requirement, or basically reducing the renewal requirement on financials to allowing compilations over $1.5 million monetary limits.
Chris, do we have a link for your PowerPoint?
We can, it's the same place where you use to log on. We can put a link there for our slides. We can get Andy to update the website and we can put the link to the slides there.
Yeah, we'll do that. If you go to our public meeting page, they'll be available for you. Maybe even as early as this afternoon. No, yeah, I think, Joe, I think public knowledge is important for regulation. There's a lot of contractors that don't know they need a license. There's a lot of consumers that don't know they need to hire a license. And that's just them not doing their homework when starting a business. Or some counties and cities have different regulations and they may not enforce something that they should. Like we run into this problem all the time where we'll get a contractor trying to do a project in another city or county that's saying you can't pull electrical permits, you don't have this classification. He's like, well, I've always pulled it in Johnson City, I'm just throwing a name out there. I'm not saying this is the truth, but they might say that. And they always let me pull permits and I didn't have it, and that's like, wow, well, they shouldn't be doing that because we're gonna make you. And that would put you, you could possibly be disciplined. Or if someone were to file a complaint against someone who's unlicensed, they could get a big hefty fine. It could be not good. So I think sharing this in public channels like Facebook or just to educate consumers and contractors to protect them too. You don't want to get yourself in trouble if you're doing a big project and you didn't know. I think it's important to educate them. And even if you post the flyer on those websites, and we do these quarterly, these webinars, and there's videos on there from other webinars as well. There's no exemptions for exams except for if you took it in a reciprocal state. We do accept NASCLA exams. If you took the NASCLA commercial or the NASCLA electrical, we do accept those, but we don't reciprocate anything else. We do reciprocate, however, if you're applying for an LLP, if you took a trade exam in one of those cities like Knoxville, for example. I know Knoxville just recently got rid of their limited plumber licenses, and they're requiring everyone to get an LLP with us instead. We will honor those exams from other cities for some of the limited electric or limited licenses, but not for the contractor's license. If you want a trade exam waiver, you have to explain why, and then you'll probably have to appear in front of the board for an interview.
All right. Any other questions that you see that we missed, Kathy?
I think we got them all.
Okay. Like I said, thank you again for everybody staying on and listening. We really do appreciate it. We will be posting this video and the slides where they can be accessible on our website at our public meeting page. We just have to get it processed and put on there. So thank you again. Again, if there's anything else we can help you with, please reach out and we will get an answer to you. But other than that, we will close it off here in about 2 minutes at 10:45, and then let everybody have back the rest of their day.
Thank you.
Or we can close it now. I don't think I've seen any other questions popping up, so we'll go ahead and close it out now. All right. Thank you, everyone.